Good afternoon, RMA family. I hope that you are hearing me now. We apologize for our delay. I think the truth is that your sons have been working so hard that we just wore the network out. No, we seriously had a campus-wide little glitch in the universe, and now we're back up live. So thank you for your patience while we got everything running, and I'm glad that you have joined us this afternoon. So we have just completed our third day of digital learning. This is all very new for us, and we appreciate the patience that you've shown us while we work through the little hiccups that we've had. But I would have to say that overall, I think our cadets are doing really, really well. Of course, they're much more accustomed to the technology than some of the rest of our universe is, so they acclimate a bit more quickly. But I think they're adjusting and settling in and figuring out this whole new way of going to school, and they're doing really, really well. We've given them, I'm going to give you just a little brief update and then I'll take questions. We have given them a couple of days to get settled in. And now we're getting serious about accountability. So here's what will happen. When a cadet is not in class, who is supposed to be in class, of course, we have cadets who live in other parts of the world who it's more challenging for them to be live. But when we're looking at who should be in class and they're not there, or if we have someone who lives around the world and they're not doing work, then our first point of contact will be our TACs. Our TACs will be the ones who then reach out to cadets to see what's going on. That is what our practice has been this entire academic year, and that's how we're going to continue. It is not our goal to burden you on a daily basis to let you know, hey, your son wasn't in class at 9:04 or whatever such time. We're going to try to work that situation the way we have always worked that. So I'd like to reassure everybody about that. Of course, if we see a persistent problem happening, we will let you know immediately so that you can be aware of that. And all of what I've just said applies whether your cadet is a cadet on campus or a cadet that is living in your house. Also, we will start entering grades now, at the end of this week, basically. We took a little bit of time off from the grades. Of course, last week we didn't have school. And then this week we're just trying to let everybody get used to everything. And then, of course, just prior to that was our end of the third quarter. We did capture all the third quarter grades and we had them ready for report cards. And the honest truth is that in the midst of everything, we forgot to click the button that made the report cards live to you. I apologize for that. Part of that's on me. I'm still new at some of these things. And yes, I knew perfectly well we had third quarter grades in, and I was super pleased that all of the grades were in and everything was solid. I just didn't know about that next little step. So you should soon be able to see your son's third quarter grade. When you're going in to look at progress, there's a toggle where you will need to switch between fourth quarter and third quarter if you want to go back and look at that, or you should be able to see the report card. Either way will get you to what the grades for third quarter were. So what you'll soon see, and some teachers have actually already started this, you'll soon see the fourth quarter grade books being built. And you'll start to see teachers adding content with grades in the grades book. So just wanted to reassure you that is coming. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? I just want to talk for just a moment about the model of instruction that we're using. Our goal has been to replicate what instruction looked like before life changed here on campus. And so many of our cadets went home. We had a very interactive, very engaged model of instruction. We knew what worked for cadets in the classroom. And so what we have done is we have intentionally replicated that very engaged model in our digital learning environment, which means that we are asking all cadets to be in class on time for each class period, 9:30 in the morning, 12:20 for their first class after their break, and then at 2 o'clock for their third class. And that's the schedule on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesdays, they don't have two classes in the afternoon. They will be doing some other activities during that third class period, just as they would have on Wednesdays when they had drill. So by having this format that's highly accountable, we are trying to keep the world as much the same as we possibly can for your son. And we're trying to make things predictable so that they know every time you log on to a class, you're going into a Zoom session for that class. They all know you go to Google Classroom for each of the classes that they have here at RMA. They can go into their Google Class, in fact, to find the link to click on to go into the Zoom session. So we're trying to eliminate as many of the little problems and bugs and even opportunities, if you will, to perhaps go off task and to make things predictable. Why the 90-minute class period? The intent behind that is to provide an opportunity for our teachers to have that direct instruction time, and then for cadets to be working on tasks for the teachers, whether it's in a small group that they're doing something in, whether it's independent work. But the hope is that they get a lot of their work done during that 90-minute session while they've still got their teacher live there with them, as much as we possibly can. Now, obviously, in their classes, there are going to be some projects that don't come to a close at the end of a class day, papers, other bigger projects, and of course, those will extend along. But trying to provide that support while the cadets have us in the Zoom setting. Just want y'all to know we are leveraging our technology to support us. We're now implementing tools that will eliminate guests who have attempted to enter our Zoom sessions who don't belong there. We can block those individuals. And then also, a couple of you have mentioned to me that you've seen some off-task behavior by your cadets. And we're working on that as well. Zoom allows the person who's hosting the session to eliminate the ability of other people to share things in the environment. So we're adding those tips to our tool belt for how to use our technology. So since we had a bit of a delay, I want to go ahead and give folks an opportunity to ask questions. And I'm going to ask Zach Garrett if he will feed me some questions that have come through. And also a few people emailed digital learning at riversidemilitary.com before the session. So we'll start with those questions and then we'll move to questions in the feed.
They can also ask questions on the live chat. So
yes, in the live chat. Yes.
Okay. We talked about the Chromebooks. Cadets, they use Chromebooks for Zoom sessions that it might feel laggy or delayed. And a parent's wondering if they need to purchase a new laptop for this. What is the guidance from us?
Okay, so the question being issues with the Chromebooks being laggy. So we do not want your first course of action to be to go purchase a new Chromebook. That's the last course of action. One of the things that I discovered this afternoon, I just hadn't really thought about it, is that one thing that will make the Chromebook laggy or slow or a little bit herky-jerky is when our cadets have multiple tabs open. I just hadn't thought about that, and it immediately conjured up an image that I just saw today right before lunch. I was walking around letting the cadets know that it was time to start packing up for their mess 2 break. And I looked over the shoulder of this cadet, and he easily had at least 30 tabs open. And I didn't ask him about the time. I just looked at it and kind of thought, whoa, okay. when we did ask somebody later today, once we realized that, the answer was, "Oh, ma'am, I don't ever close any tabs." Okay, so now we know a new practice for tomorrow that we will implement first thing in the morning once we have, and all of the teachers will be checking in with the students in their class to do this, is how many tabs do you have open? For this session right now, all they need to have open, when they first start the day, is Google Classroom and then Zoom. So we're going to be checking with that to see if that will help us with some of the issues of feeling like the stream was lagging a little bit.
How can parents know if class is really canceled or not? My son said a class leader texted him and let him know that it was canceled.
We will not be canceling any classes unless that teacher puts a note in their Google Classroom, unless there's an emergency, in which case I will send something out on the teacher's behalf. But we will post an official note to where you can be very clear if you're having to check on that. We really hope to minimize the number of class cancellations that we would have. And I'm working on another strategy for how to help with that. But just know that even if a teacher were to cancel a live session, they've still got work to do. And they would be able to tell from what's posted in their Google Classroom that they've got work to go do. So hopefully we will not be seeing a lot of that. And like I said, we're with that problem.
How are we handling issues with cadets that are not taking the virtual classes seriously?
All right. So I know one question that has come up is, how are we handling it when a cadet is not taking class seriously? That's going to happen. We know that's going to happen. For me to sit here and say, "Oh no, none of them would ever do that," that would be naive. So we can leverage our technology to help a little bit with that. We are able to mute the participants in the classroom, so they may be talking, but they can't be heard. We're also able to control their ability to share something physically, like on occasion, the teacher might even ask them to hold something up, with something on it. We can limit their ability to share if they are using that inappropriately. Also, if we have a cadet who decides that he would like to join another class for which he's not currently enrolled, but he just wants to hop in there because his buddies are in there, the teacher will be able to block him from being in the room. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is we're going to engage our TACs with us on that, to get them to reach out to cadets to have a discussion about that. Class participation, that's another way that we help send a serious message about behavior in class, that if you're not participating appropriately, class participation gets dinged. It may be that class participation, if we've got that weighted right, that could be a serious consequence for someone who's not going about the process seriously. While we are seeing a little bit of that, I have to say that I'm hearing really good comments from the teachers. And because I'm walking around all day long with the cadets who remain here, we're seeing a lot of good on-task behavior that I'm excited about.
There was a question about giving bonus points for cadets that wear their uniforms in their Zoom session.
That is not something we have considered. I will make a note of that, and we can talk about it.
There was a question about the difference in class time. We have an in-person class time versus now the Zoom 90 minutes of class. I did respond to her that said that classes are now 90 minutes on Zoom for this new schedule. And she's just wondering why her cadet might be done before 90 minutes for each class.
So absolutely, that's a great question. So we do have a 90-minute block of time. We expect that all teachers will be engaging with cadets for a portion of that time. It's going to vary. I don't want to put an exact number on that because it's going to vary between courses and the content and what they're covering that day. But part of that time will be engaged, active learning. Part of that time will intentionally be working on small groups, working on independent work. Not every cadet moves at the same speed. So some cadets are going to finish more quickly than others. Another piece that, we've got to just kind of figure our way through is pacing. This is new. This is brand new. As of today, we made it through all 7 class periods. And so, think about that fact. The teachers, except for first period's now taught 2 class sessions. But I think it's going to take just a little bit for teachers to get the cadence and rhythm of how long the activities are going to take in class, how much time it's going to take for cadets to do their work. And then they'll be able to adjust accordingly as we move through the quarter to make sure we're making good use of the time.
One person said some of the classes that started much later than the scheduled time, and they don't believe this is the right practice. If some cadets are late, they should be told that we aren't waiting on you and we're continuing without you, so the class session is not delayed.
Okay, so the question is about class sessions that were delayed in starting. I would ask all of you to be patient with the fact that as we were starting up, we were dealing with trying to make sure we had everybody where they needed to be. This whole pandemic affects all of us. And so it also affects our teachers who have families and lives and situations too. So they've been, while a lot of the world has been managing the notion of limited access to other humans, our teachers went through superhero professional learning last week to get up and ready to teach this week. They're still going through that. Every day is a great deal of work, and it's worth every bit of it. But so what we found out in our first couple of days is that we had a few bobbles here and there where classes didn't start perfectly on time. Intentionally in those classes, we also didn't necessarily hit right on the content right away. We deliberately allowed cadets some time to talk to each other. And then, to be honest, the teachers missed your sons. And so they wanted to hear from your sons about how they were adjusting to being at home, what they were doing. And so there's been a bit of time where they weren't necessarily totally engaged in content, but that type of interaction, I believe, is also very important. We are now working under a common agreement of all the teachers that there's an expectation that unless we have a technological glitch, that classes start on time, all classes start with Zoom, and that we have our Zoom sessions open for the full class period so that cadets who might be having trouble with an assignment will be able to reach out for help. Now, the teacher may pause the recording if he or she knows that there's some independent work going on, just because there really wouldn't be anything to go look at on that recording later. But all teachers will also be doing a end of class check-in 15 minutes prior to their class session ending to make sure that all cadets are good, that there aren't any questions. And, and again, that's another piece of accountability for us. So what I'm stressing to teachers, to cadets, to all of you is we're going for predictability. Your son should know, be on line on time. Pay attention in class. Do the work. What happens if you don't pay attention? You've got a TAC talking to you, just like it's been for the whole school year. And then class doesn't end until you've checked back in with your teachers. So we're trying to go for consistency with every class.
Can you speak to the 2-week grace period of a new quarter? Is this a thing? And with this new format, behavior of some of the cadets might need this period to get it together.
Yeah, so actually, we've always had this grace period thing at the beginning of a quarter or at the beginning of the school year, where we gave everybody a moment or two to kind of have things together. We have not, like in our past world where we would have had weekend restriction for folks whose grades were not all passing. We didn't do weekend restriction for the first couple of weeks, and then we would start it. So what I keep telling people is, show patience, show a little extra grace and support to everybody. So if we have a cadet who's not being perfect, let's calmly stress what we need to see. Let's give an opportunity to see that behavior change. And then by the same token, let's extend that same patience with all of us too. I mean, just as I am so apologetic to all of you that this session was delayed this afternoon. I'm sitting here saying to Zach, I'm like, a Q&A on digital learning midweek doesn't bode well when our technology doesn't work. We couldn't help that. It was our technology went down for the campus. It came back up. We moved on, and I am very, very sorry. That's what our world's going to look like right now. And so we are trying to extend that. By the same token, we're giving our cadets the opportunity to get used to this environment, this new digital learning environment, and then we will hold accountability. And we have now moved into that to where we're trying to make sure that they know that we see what's going on and that we're aware and that we want to support them for success.
Could you speak just briefly about the breakout rooms feature in Zoom? Because some teachers or some parents might think when they look over their son's shoulder that they're only chatting with a few of their friends when really they're in a small group working.
Absolutely. So the question that came in was about the breakout rooms in Zoom. And so, in fact, if you're walking around behind your son, and I spend my day doing this now, walking behind kids, looking at what they're looking at, going, okay. You might walk by and see them chatting with a small group of friends and be concerned that they're just off task. Not necessarily. There's a breakout room feature in Zoom that we can use so that cadets can be in small learning groups. It's the same way we would have done in a classroom if we perhaps took that room and said, okay, group 1, you're in this corner, group 2, you're in this corner, group 3, you're here, group 4, you're here. We don't have them physically here to do that. So now we're, again, leveraging our technology to do that. So I'm not saying it's impossible for them to do anything off task. We all know that they're pretty savvy with how to use technology, but there's a very good chance that they could be doing a teacher-sponsored activity and not just being off task.
It was just a second.
Okay.
Are the TACs calling home? What are the TACs doing during this time?
Okay, so what TACs are doing is we're going to start with TACs talking to your sons. And so to that end, we're going to be communicating with you within the next day or so to ask for you to share your cadet's cell phone number, if he has one, with us so that the TACs will have a way to reach your son. We can also use email. That's definitely not a problem, but we'll start with TACs to cadets because that's the way it occurred when your sons were on campus. The TACs are the eyes and the ears, and teachers were able to use the on-campus accountability function, which we're still using now in our new world, the TACs were able to keep aware of what was going on with the cadets that were in their companies and were able to communicate with them. And so first course of action is TAC reaching out to a cadet to say, hey, what's going on? Let's get this together. If there's a persistent problem, the TAC's going to reach out to parents just as the TACs would have done in the world before the pandemic started.
There are no further questions. I'm going to ask if there's any final questions. We are coming up on 25 minutes online.
Alrighty, so we're gonna put something out there to remind folks that we're coming up close to our full amount of time for this afternoon. We don't have any other questions that have been posted. What I'd like to say to you is this. I am just so impressed with the work that I'm seeing going on by the whole community. I'm watching teachers who have never used some of the technology they've used or taught in the way that they're teaching, who are embracing these new technologies and who are out there we've got our own Google Classroom for the teachers where we share tips for teaching and all sorts of other materials. And it has just given me so much joy to watch how much they're collaborating with each other and saying, hey, I developed this thing. Let me share this with you. If you can use that, that'd be great. And so they've really rallied around this new way of thinking and being. And all of that in the midst of the fact that, they have their own family concerns to deal with, just like everyone does. I'm proud of our cadets so far. With the kids that are here on campus, our 21 remainers, as we call them, I'm seeing them all day, and I want them to laugh and smile. I want them to have a joy about learning. But I'm also really proud of the fact that for the most part, they're buckling down and getting to business when they know it's time. And almost to a T, when I go around to the rooms to kind of give them like a 5-minute warning or a 3-minute warning before it's time for the class session to end, and they're still engaged. And some of them will just nod their heads, but not even really look up at me because they're busy. They're busy doing what they're doing. Now, does that mean that they're all 100% not perhaps reading something else that's not school related? Maybe, but what they're not doing is distracting each other. They're doing what they are supposed to be doing. And so I'm really proud. I'm proud of our teachers. I'm proud of our cadets and how everybody has taken the steps that had to be taken to go into this new journey. And I just want to thank everybody for your support. And please keep the questions coming. Digital learning at riversidemilitary.com is an email address that will hit about 5 or 6 of us, to where if I'm tied up with something, there are other people who are seeing it. We're trying to get responses to those emails as quickly as we possibly can. So please reach out to us with questions. And I've enjoyed being online with you this afternoon. Go Eagles.